Hello and good day, everybody. Welcome to this new episode of our medical device podcast by the Journal of Medical Device Regulation. My name is Maria Čapek, and with us here today is Richard Houlihan from JMDR.eu. Welcome, Richard. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having me.
To start us off, please could you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your company, JMDR.eu.
Okay. As you said, Richard Houlihan, I've 25 plus years in IT. I spent the last 10 years in total at this stage with Eudamed. Firstly, about 8 years with inside in the commission itself, where I was running the Eudamed.EU side, and then I took over as the technical manager on Eudamed.3. Because of the level of support, software, help, and pain that the medical device industry are going to have to go through, we formed Eudamed.eu. And Eudamed.eu, we're providing templates so you can collate your data, put it together. We've got software to help you prepare the XML and submit it to the commission, etc. Training, because it is an incredibly complex system. So we run these training sessions over 2 days. We're based in Sofia. Currently, I'm actually sitting in Ireland as I'm talking to you now because of this whole COVID-19 disaster, but we're run out of Bulgaria. We're also in Brussels, and for everything Eudamed, we can help you.
For those who might be new to the topic, I think it would be helpful if you could briefly describe what Eudamed is and what it is designed to achieve.
Okay. Eudamed has actually been in existence since 1997. I think it's 97. And its version 1 started from a system that came out of Germany from JMDR for tracking medical devices. Then in 2011, I believe it was, when Eudamed.2 had come along, that's when it became legally binding for the reporting of incidents from the competent authorities and notified bodies used to submit the data, but the notified bodies couldn't submit it directly. It had to come through the competent authorities to Eudamed.2. There was a lot of disasters with medical devices, everything from the PIP case where the breast implants had the industrial silicone, things like that, prompted the commission. Now, they were probably thinking about it anyway, because they normally do these things in nice phase steps where they take more and more control over things. But the MDR regulations, they started talking about them in 2011, 2012. They spoke about a new version of Eudamed coming then. I naively thought that would be a couple of years after they start talking about the regulations. Here we are nearly 10 years later and we're still talking about Eudamed coming. But the whole idea of this Eudamed.3 or MDR Eudamed, is transparency. It's so that the public can see things. At the moment, if you want to look up a device, you've nowhere to go. I even had an email today from a company going, where can I look up the certified devices in Europe? There isn't anywhere. So you've got the transparency side from the public. You've got increased surveillance so that there is more post-market surveillance on the devices. The spirit of the actual legislation is to track the device from inception all the way through its life, all incidents, all versions of the data, versions of the actual device. And yeah, it's to help improve patient safety and make sure that everybody has a clearer view of everything. Currently, if an incident is reported, it gets added to Eudamed.2 by the competent authorities, and then it gets shipped out to all these various functional mailboxes. Once Eudamed.3 is in place, everybody gets to see everything. If you're going for a hip replacement, you'll be able to go to the internet, look it up and go, no, I don't like that one, too many incidents, but this other one is available from this other company. I would prefer that. It'll also give you more choice.
So we know that there are 6 main modules for the new Eudamed, and the first of these, the actor registration module, became live last December. Could you briefly explain who needs to register and the basic process to be followed?
Okay. Excuse me, sorry. All economic operators, with the exception of distributors. So your importers, authorized representatives, system and procedure pack producers, and manufacturers, they all have to register. And if your company happens to have more than one of those roles, which many companies do, because they might import from sister companies in different countries and be their authorized rep, then each one of them, each role you have to register for. And then you get a different SRN. The SRN is your single registration number. And this is tied to your company forever. Once you get it, it's yours forever. And this is how the people track you. The actual registration process itself, if you're a European company, you have to, there's a long form where you have to give your persons responsible for regulatory compliance, obviously name and address. If you're using a third-party company like ours to register, then we have to give our details as well. There's a signed security annex, which you have to declare who is going to be your local actor administrator, which is the highest rights inside the system. You have to declare you're registering as a authorized rep, manufacturer, etc. There's the non-European manufacturers. When they're registering, they have to have a mandate with an authorized rep. So before a non-EU manufacturer can register, their authorized representative has to have completed the process first, because they have to supply the SRN of their authorized rep. And then they also have to supply a mandate, which is between you and the authorized rep, or between them and the authorized rep. That also has to be uploaded. For the non-EU manufacturers, once they've submitted, then the authorized rep they selected, they have to validate them first. And this authorized rep can say no, they can just decline completely if it's some spurious company just trying to sneak in. But if the authorized rep validates your company, then you go to the competent authority for validation. For the EU companies, they go directly to the competent authority for validation. And the one thing I will say about the registrations, there's a lot of manufacturers who have told me they will not complete all the non-mandatory fields for devices and things like that. They said they will only complete the mandatory ones. But I would suggest they take the opposite approach when they're registering their companies, because there's things like website, ERI number. The ERI number is your customs number for the imports. There's a lot of fields in that are not mandatory. Mm-hmm. But the competent authorities are going to have over 80,000 companies to validate. That's a massive undertaking. So if I was in the competent authority and I saw a list of companies in front of me, the first ones I would take are the ones that have all the information. Yeah. Because if you've got all the information, it's going to be far easier to validate. There's going to be no messing back and forth. So I would suggest that all the information, just fill it. It doesn't cost you anything. They can find it all on the internet anyway, but it'll save them having to look for it. So it's the only time I'll suggest definitely filling in all the non-mandatory fields as well.
That's a good tip.
I hope so.
So we are expecting the UDI device registration module to be made available by May of this year. What should manufacturers be doing now to prepare for this?
I'm really hoping they're all preparing their data. The basic UDIs, even though Eudamed is delayed, they still have to have the basic UDIs in place by May 26th of this year. Yeah. Anyway, so we have the device module coming along then. And again, this is another thing that I would advise people to do rather than letting it sit. There is a long lead-in time, and Eudamed isn't going to be fully functional until May 2022. Okay, so for this year, they don't have to add data, but I would strongly suggest they get their device data in there as quickly as possible, because when this device module goes live, this will be the only chance, I believe, that you will have of getting proper support from the IT team. Because when IT teams deliver a piece of software, they watch it very carefully. And they will sit there and wait for the errors to come, and then they can dive in, fix it quickly. Or the questions will come, or the pain will come from the companies saying, look, we tried to upload this, it refused. we can't recreate it, but it refused to do this, you stand a chance of getting support. So in answer to your actual question now, what they should do is start putting their data together. It's a project in itself. A lot of these companies have been brilliant with the MDR side. They've gone on all the training. They're all absolutely perfect. But I've seen a lot of companies pushing back Eudamed. But the Eudamed bit, they have to do it either way. They've no choice. They have to do it. So why not do it now when there's no stress and you stand a chance of getting support? So they need to collate their data. They first of all need to figure out the amount of fields. There's about 74 different data points for the MDR. The IVDR has slightly fewer, but they have to figure out all the data points. They have to put together a spreadsheet so they can start keeping all this data together. The spreadsheets we put together, we spent over 75 hours putting these together. And this was coming at it with a huge amount of knowledge at the start. So if companies are going to invest in doing their own spreadsheets or their own databases to look at this, it's going to take them an inordinate amount of time just to figure out what they're looking for, what they actually need. Because there's going to be data in the QMS system, in the marketing, and the R&D. There'll be bits everywhere. That all has to be put together. And once they get it together, then they can decide how they're going to get it into the system. Because there's another very long step on that as well. Because if you've got more than, say, 20, 25 devices, UDIDIs, by the way, then you should really be looking at converting it to XML and doing these bulk uploads. And if you've tens of thousands of devices and you have a huge need for machine-to-machine assistance, then you need to look at that. But the first steps, get the data together.
And if a company is already submitting UDI information to the US FDA, for instance, can they simply reuse that information for Eudamed?
The FDA data, you can fit on one line of a spreadsheet. One device, one line on the spreadsheet. Our MDR template, it's the biggest one. I keep referring to the MDR rather than the IVDR because the MDR is actually the biggest of them. So our MDR template has 20 tabs. Not one line, 20 tabs. Because there are so many places within Eudamed where you can enter multiple things like critical warnings or substances or INN codes. You can enter multiples. And that's before you even look at the language translations. Because for every place you can enter some text, you can enter it in multiple languages as well. So trade names, just trade names. If you've got 3 or 4 trade names and they have different languages associated, that will give you, we'll say, 5 or 6, 7, 8 records. But if you had all those in the same tab as the UDIDI, then you'd have to repeat all the UDIDI data. So unfortunately, the data that's submitted to the FDA, it's a subset. Because even on we did look in the commission at matching the HL7 from the FDA against the XML requirements for Eudamed. Eudamed is looking for far more data. It really is. It's a shame that we couldn't all speak together, but unfortunately, the European one is looking for far more information. I think maybe in 5 or possibly 10 years, the FDA might take on a lot more of what is in the European system when we get to see the reporting afterwards and all the really good statistics from a nerdy point of view that you can get out of systems like this. But for now, yeah. Unfortunately.
So a few weeks ago, the European Commission issued a new document on the management of legacy devices in Eudamed.
Okay.
To supplement the Medical Device Coordination Group guidance document from April 2019.
Yeah.
What are the key points of these documents that manufacturers should take note of?
Okay, the companies that have existing UDIDIs. One of the issues with actually, I'll give you history on it first. One of the issues with the legacy devices was that the Commission and the IT team never expected to bring in the legacy devices. We had always understood there was going to be no import of data from Eudamed.eu, because Eudamed.eu is a disaster, with the data is not good. So there was never going to be imports there. So we all presumed that we would not touch legacy devices. So we designed a system so the UDIDI was going to be the central key. As the central key, you can only ever have one. Maybe multiple versions, but you can only ever have one with a key. Then the MDCG and the member states, they decided, no, we want the legacy devices in there, and the Commission had to, they had to do it. You know, the boss says, do this, so you do this. So we kind of had a bit of a problem then, because some of the US devices, even some of the European devices, they already had these UDIDIs, which means they may have to register them on this legacy device, but when they do the MDR certification, they might need the same UDIDI. So then we had the problem we were going to end up with two, because it's effectively two separate records, MDD, MDR, IVDD, IVDR, etc. So what we kind of did was we tied the legislation to it, but that wasn't enough, because you still had this central key. So, and one other little gem is there's no concept of a basic UDI in the legacy devices. The basic UDI is effectively the, we'll see the parent of a group. So you have one basic UDI, and underneath that you can have many UDIDIs on the regulations. But on the legacy side, you've only got the UDIDI. There's no basic. So we had to kind of cross that bridge as well. So what was decided was, and this is part of the document, for the existing UDIDIs, you can submit those, and it creates effectively a fake basic UDI. It takes your existing UDIDI and prefixes it with a B hyphen. So we'll say B-123, and you select Eudamed as the issuing entity. So that's the basic UDI. And for the UDIDI, and you're only allowed one UDIDI under this fake basic for the legacy devices. But for your UDIDI, you effectively take the same UDI, your correct issuing entity, and then a D hyphen is put in front of the actual DI code. And what that allows to happen is when time comes for you to upload your MDR devices, you'll be able to just use your regular UDIDI with your regular issuing entity, and there'll be no clashes. But with an Eudamed, it allows the connection between the two. So that's for the existing UDIDIs. Excuse me. For the devices that don't have any DI codes, and there is across Europe, there's a huge amount, because there was never you never had to do it. In the document, it gives this very long algorithm, and it explains if you're entering your device through the Eudamed front end, through the web pages, there's a little button there, you click generate, and it creates a fake UDIDI, fake basic UDI. Okay, they call it the Eudamed DI code. It's still a fake basic UDI, no matter which way you look at it. But for people uploading the XML, they have to create them themselves. And this algorithm is, if you're a programmer, it's fine. You'll figure it out in a few hours, and then you'll take another several hours to code it. But it's a real pain in the neck to put it together, because you need your SRN, or yeah, you do need your SRN, and you need your device code, your own internal device code or whatever. And then it goes through all this algorithm, gives you back your SRN without the hyphens in it. It concatenates the actual code to it, the manufacturer's device code, and then it's got some letters at the end which have been generated based on all these maths. So I was looking at this, and we were going to have to put something together ourselves for our own systems. So I got one of our programmers. We went through the algorithm, make sure we understood it all, and made sure we could actually get the correct information back and forth. And I got one of the programmers to put it together in an Excel spreadsheet, and we put it up on our website for free. So for the companies that don't have the DI codes, and it's the only time you use it is for Eudamed, you don't put them on labels, they don't go anywhere else. It is only for Eudamed. But within that section, you have to generate them yourself. So to save people time, we have put it up on the website. It's probably the only free thing I'll ever do, but it's there for anybody that wants it. And the main takeaways: if you don't have DI codes, you have to generate them. If you do have DI codes, then you need to do this prefixing and a few little changes.
Okay. So do you have any information on the timings for the remaining modules of Eudamed and a fully functioning Eudamed?
Yes.
You do?
Well, no. Yes and no. Okay, so we got actors are there. We know that. The devices and certificates are both going to come together. They're going to come on May 26th, if all goes well. The other 3 modules, your vigilance, clinical investigations and performance studies, and your post-market surveillance, on paper, or at least on the information we have from the Commission so far, they're all May 2022. But I think, and it's only my opinion, I think the vigilance one might come sooner, because I cannot see them completing all the work. And they will have the vigilance one done probably Q4 this year. I cannot see them just sitting on it for 6 months. It would be an awful waste, because there is going to be so much information. And if they go for the big bang approach with vigilance, clinical investigations, post-market, etc., that's when you get issues. It's a lot easier to phase things in gently and just see what happens. So I would hope, and it's only my thought, that maybe the vigilance might be Q4 of this year. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. That was really interesting. It was lovely talking to you, and our audience will learn a lot from your insights. Thank you so much for your expertise.
My pleasure, Maria. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.